Radio Network.
Presented by Rocket Mortgage.
Live from the O'Reilly Auto Parts Studios, here's Jake Asman.
Boy, this is a very physical game as Irving throws it in, goes down hard on his right shoulder. He's shaken up. Now he's holding his right leg. It's 5-on-4. Irving still down. Connaughton can't hit the three. Rebound, Griffin. And now they're bringing up, and the timeout is called as Kyrie Irving holding that right shin and banging the court. And Nets, of course, have had their share of injuries all season long, including their stars.
Looked like he came down on that ankle, landing on Giannis's foot.
Yep. Mike Breen all over it there on ABC. Kyrie Irving leaves the game in the second quarter. They're calling it an ankle sprain. He did not return, and now it's uncertain on whether or not he'll be back for Game 5, let alone any game remaining in this series. Milwaukee beats the Nets 107-96, the final, and this series is now tied at 2 games apiece. And this series changed on a dime. The Nets were up 34-25 in this game. Milwaukee is in the midst of what was a 19-2 run, and then Kyrie sprains his ankle during that run, and now the entire series is flipped upside down. You know, after Game 3, a game, by the way, that Milwaukee won 86-83, I still thought the Bucks were done in 5. They didn't play great in that Game 3. They needed the Nets to play awful. You know, they needed, the Joe Harris, of the Nets, the NBA's leader in three-point percentage, to shoot 1 of 11. They needed KD and Kyrie Irving to shoot a combined 20 of 50. And they still only won by 3 points. So I thought, even Milwaukee winning Game 3, it wouldn't matter. Now, who the heck knows? If Kyrie Irving can't play Game 5 and Harden's out, I think Milwaukee wins the series. I think it's as simple as that. The Nets don't have enough. Kevin Durant's going to find out what life is like when you don't have 2 other superstars next to you. Or basically what LeBron's had to do for a lot of his career. Remember when LeBron took some of those Cavs teams to the finals and they went up against Durant's Warriors? And a lot of people were saying, oh, well, this is where the passing of the guard happens, the changing of the guard, the passing of the baton. Well, no, LeBron did everything he could. In 2018, he averaged a 34-point triple-double, and his team got beaten 5 games, or they got swept, whatever year that was. Well, now Durant's going to find out what that's like. Because Milwaukee's the better team if Kyrie and Harden don't play. That's obvious. There's just not enough scoring the Nets are going to be able to get from guys not named Kevin Durant to make up the difference in losing James Harden and Kyrie Irving. That's like 60 points a night you're trying to make up. That's just too much. Unless Joe Harris hits like 15 threes, I don't see how the Nets win the series unless, Kyrie either comes back for Game 5, which seems unlikely, or James Harden plays in Game 5, and that seems to be, to be determined at this point. So this is bad if you're a Net fan. There's no other way around it. And unfortunately for the Nets, this was the only thing that was going to stop them. We talked a lot about the lack of cohesion by the Big Three. They only played 8 games in the regular season together. And so far in these playoffs, it really didn't seem to matter that they played so little amount of time together, right? They look great against Boston, and it's unfortunate Harden gets hurt 43 seconds into Game 1, but even without Harden, the Nets played about as well as you could play in Games 1 and 2 at home. They narrowly lose Game 3, and now series is tied after Kyrie gets hurt there. If Kyrie doesn't get hurt, I'm convinced Brooklyn wins that game yesterday. And now, who knows? I mean, the Irving injury means that the championship in the NBA is wide open for any of the teams left. Clippers down 2-1. They're still in the mix. They still got 2 stars. Obviously, the Jazz have been the best team in the regular season all year. They're certainly a contender. Phoenix is obviously a contender after they dismantled Denver in 4 games. Philly, if they get by Atlanta, they're up 2-1. They were the 1 seed in the East for a reason. They're certainly a contender. And if Milwaukee were to get by Brooklyn, heck, why not the Bucks? So what the injury to Kyrie Irving does is it opens up the East and it opens up the rest of the NBA. When was the last time you can't definitively say who the 2 teams are that are going to be in the finals? Or at least one of the teams that are going to be in the finals? The Nets were a lock to go to the finals if they stayed healthy. I don't really think you could debate it. I know Philly's had a great year, but no one's going to pick Philly. They're going to have to prove it. This injury is so significant. Totally alters the balance of power, if you will, in the NBA. And it's unfortunate because this was the only thing that was going to stop the Nets. The problem is the Nets were built to be led by Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving. And both guys have suffered a lot of injuries in their career. Kyrie Irving, I mean, he missed the end of last year, right, with the knee injury. Durant didn't play at all last year. Durant basically missed 2 years. And then obviously Harden, who the one thing you can never knock him for is his durability, he's finally dealing with the injury bug. It's unfortunate. I don't root for injuries. You'd like to see the Nets lose at their very best, but this is the problem when you're building a super team that's built on guys that have not always stayed healthy in their career. They were injured all throughout the regular season, and I guess it was naive of us just to think now that the playoffs start and teams play more physical that they'd be able to hold up. And you look at the landscape of these playoffs, they've been marred by injury. It's factored in everything. You think the Lakers get beat as soundly as they did if LeBron and AD obviously were 100% healthy? I don't think so. Ron's nodding his head. He knows. Once the Lakers took a 2-1 series lead and then AD got hurt, it changed the entire series. It was over there. So you look at these playoffs and, the Nuggets, you think they get swept if Jamal Murray doesn't get hurt? Right? So unfortunately, as compelling as some of these playoff matchups have been, the overall storyline has to be the injury factor in all this. It just does. There's no other way around it. So Kyrie goes down with the ankle injury, and the x-rays were negative. This was Steve Nash yesterday on the Kyrie injury.
I have no idea, what's going to happen with Kai in the coming days. We'll cross our fingers and hope that it's better than I don't know, better than what? Better than missing the next game. It is tricky with Kev. We all got to pitch in. We all got to play together. We got to move the ball. And I thought tonight we got a little single-minded, looking for Kevin every time.
The problem is they're not built to play without two of their stars. They're just not. I mean, and also you got to also understand when you look at the Nets, it's not just Irving and Harden. They're also without Spencer Dinwiddie. Now, that injury is kind of flied under the radar because it happened so early in the season, right, with the torn ACL. But he's a big piece. You don't think they could use a scorer like Dinwiddie right now? I mean, this has been the story for the Nets this year, unfortunately. They have just been banged up. They have dealt with more injuries than most teams. And when you're a team built on superstars and two of your three superstars are now hurt, it's going to be tough to overcome that. It just is. But the NBA playoffs, I mean, it's wide open right now. You look at the teams that are left: Philly, Milwaukee, Brooklyn, Clippers, Utah, Phoenix. I think other than Atlanta, you can make a compelling case where there's a path for all those teams I just mentioned to actually think they can win a title. And that just doesn't happen in the NBA in the last 20 plus years. I can't think of a year where it's been this wide open. So it's good and it's bad for the NBA. It's bad when you get the stars that are getting hurt. It's good when you have a lot of teams' fan bases feeling like they can win. Problem is, you think the NBA really wants a, Phoenix, Utah conference finals? I mean, what's the worst finals matchup for the NBA? Is it Utah against Milwaukee? I mean, you have Giannis, you have Donovan Mitchell, but TV ratings for those markets are not going to be great. I'm just throwing that out there if you're into the old, what are the, NBA executives that check the ratings rooting for? It's wide open right now. That's how significant that injury to Kyrie Irving is. And it's unfortunate because, obviously, I've been on the record. If the Nets were fully healthy, I said after the Celtics series, I didn't think they could be beat. We shall see how it ultimately plays out. But if you're a fan of any of the teams that are left, you got to feel like you got a chance. And I mentioned Atlanta. I don't think they have a chance. I mean, prove me wrong. Win tonight, tie the series up, and maybe the Hawks will have something to say about that. But a massive weekend for the NBA. And once again, the landscape, you could argue now, of the teams that are left completely has changed. 800-224-2004 is the number if you want to get involved talking NBA playoffs here. I mentioned the Phoenix Suns. What they have done this postseason has been so impressive. What Chris Paul continues to do at his age is just extraordinary. We'll get to the Suns and what it all means as Phoenix is going back to the conference finals for the first time in a decade when we return. Stay tuned. Jake Asman with you here on a Monday morning. This is the Jake Asman Show. You're listening to us on Sports Map Radio.
Let's go. Pushing the odds with Matt